Good evening. We have a couple large chunks of news this past week to go over. One chunk related to Nationals, and the other chunk related to the rules update that we were expecting circa last week, right? So yeah, just to get right in, first and foremost, we have a change to the Hero League Championship invite construction. So now they're doing away with the last chance qualifier that they were planning to have, presumably at the venue itself. So the expectation is that maybe they're gonna sort of scale back. So they were really working on some like grandiose plans for the HLC, trying to get more than just the invitees to show up. But considering they're dropping this last chance qualifier, I'm guessing they're not going to have, they're sort of scaling that back. They might run some like Win-A-Pucks type side events or something for people that actually want to go be there in person for whatever reason, but I think the focus of that's going to be sort of the stream and the coverage and that sort of thing is what it sounds like. So those last chance qualifier invites have been folded into webcam nationals. So now not only the top 8 of US and EU nationals, but also the top 8 of this webcam nationals will get HLC invites, as well as the top 2 for Oceania. Speaking of Oceania, the EU and Oceania Nats dates were announced. They're going to be November 26th, 27th. That is Thanksgiving weekend in the US, but not anywhere else in the world. So, pretty suitable dates out there. But they haven't announced the locations or times or any other details yet. It would be nice if they at least had like a city or something, but still waiting on that. Still got 6 weeks out before that. It's certainly going to get tight on travel schedules and people's abilities to make plans for it, but hopefully we get the final details on that within the next week or two or something like that. We also got to see details of Nationals prizing, and I'll link all the Nats related articles in the description here. There's one for every Nationals. But it looks like the participation promos, unlike the regional ones where you got sort of a random selection of promos, you're going to get a full set of whatever these Nats promos are. So if there's like 4 different promos, you'll get one of each card instead of a random assortment of promos. But the participation is going to be 2 of each card, however many there are. There could be 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 5. We don't know yet. But whatever there is, you'll get 2 of each for entering, and then the prizing on the upper levels when you get more, it's all in complete sets, which is kind of nice. You can't, if there's an acid, if there's a in this bunch, never mind, at least acid fling looks really good. if there's a in this bunch, you don't have to worry about like the RNG of like, oh my god, I opened all the bad ones or whatever. So yeah, the prize promos, they're going to do the champion contender promos as usual for the regionals, but now there's going to be the nationals one. It is Aggressive Clash, I believe. I might be misremembering that, but it is. We'll go with Aggressive Clash, and also they're going to bring that down to the top 4. So there's going to be top 4 versions of this promo as well. So yeah, so that's shaping out. We're getting pretty complete details, at least from Dallas and the webcam event, including the Dallas Friday event has been announced. The main event for Friday. They're going to run one last standard event. This being the old 10-set standard that you hear all the boomers whine about here and there, right? So it's the most recent 10 sets, which is going to be everything from Cowboy Bebop forward. And, because this is basically just a play to the old nostalgia and whatnot, they're going to bring back just about all the old standard rule sets that got changed for MHA. Not like the little stuff, not like little technical details like how simultaneous actions are worked out that just changed in the latest rulebook a little bit, but like just the big stuff. So there's gonna be, they're keeping the mulligans, everything else you're gonna be able to stack characters. You're gonna have to deal with symbol chaining, which means you can do multi-symbol decks if you bend over backwards a little bit, and you're going to be able to attack on the first turn. And some things like that. In addition to, of course, you're going to have all the old keywords and whatnot in effect. Yeah, the participation for that are these full art reprints of Red Horizon cards with an updated watermark, which I guess means in whatever whatever they do next for the evolution, you know, obviously they're not going to run any more standard events after this, the old 10 set standards, but they do want to, they do, like, for business reasons, need to have some sort of multi-IP format, because they can't, you know, they're not going to be able to ride MHA in perpetuity, right? So they need to establish some sort of multi-license strategy, and we'll still need to see what exactly that looks like, but I guess in whatever that format is, these promos are going to be playable. So cards like Spinning Necro Driver are going to get another lease on life sometime down the road here. And the winner, this being a standard event, is going to get what they call the greatest prize in gaming, which is you will get to have a tournament legal, obviously again in the future multi-IP format, tournament legal character that is you, right? So there are 3 Tim Keefe characters out there that are or were in their time tournament legal from winning various single standard events. For instance, there's 5 Garrett Bretts. There's going to be a 6th one coming along the way. And I'm sure along with this, they're going to be reaching out to the champs that were still owed cards when the pandemic hit and getting those taken care of, you know, for the launch of the multi-IP format, I would assume, or some, you know, somewhere around that time frame, right? So yeah, that should be interesting. It will... Frankly, there's probably some interaction between MHA cards and older cards that's absolutely busted, that somebody's going to find and abuse and sort of roll over the event with something broken and pretty toxic. But, you know, people will get to bring out their pet decks, play some of their favorite cards one last time, or, you know, maybe not one last time, depending on what the future multi-license format looks like. But it'll be interesting. Pretty good Friday event. We'll have to see how they fit it in timing-wise. That's going to be a bit of a struggle if enough people enter it. They're actually fitting it in there, but this cues into... Yeah, might as well segue into the rules updates, because that's related. So they issued the usual new set rules updates. As usual, there are a bunch of like little minor things of like somebody pointing out like, hey, this could be worded better, or hey, this is kind of technically a loophole that somebody could argue, even though, you know, no judge would ever like seriously let them rules lawyer the rules like that or whatever. But that's a little like loophole closing, those sorts of things. But the big changes are, first of all, the big one is that the player one mulligan is getting scaled back. You will only be able to mulligan once. They decided based on their data that 2 was just, and just some of the decks people were playing, that 2 mulligans for player 1 was just too much. So they're scaling that back down to 1 mulligan, and if you mulligan into an unplayable hand, you're allowed to show that, you know, there's no cards you can legally play because you can't attack on first turn and take 1 more mulligan. And if you have an unplayable hand after that, well, you know, you should probably put some foundations in your deck or something, right? if 2 mulligans leads you to an unplayable hand. But other than that, the other one that I was alluding to before, they're increasing the size of top cuts at some of the player counts. So now they're recommending top 16 for 65 or more players, which is a number they've had at points in time in Jasco. It's been, you know, it's hard to gauge, because obviously if you're a purist, or if you're one of the players that, you know, regularly switch champs events or is up there in the X1 bracket, then that's 1 more round of top cuts you have to get through from somebody who played some coin flip aggro deck or whatever and went, you know, X and 3 with it, but they had good tiebreakers or whatever. So, you know, obviously, like, there's downsides to this. It kind of increases the randomness. It goes into actually a winning event, but even then, you still end up with really good players winning these events, right? The 16 seeds that, you know, get in with their 4-3 record or whatever usually don't go all the way. But sometimes they pop out the Swiss champ, and it's a bit of a bad look. But on the flip side, from a player experience standpoint, the argument is that the more people that make top cuts or feel like they were really close to top cuts, that's more people that feel like they did really good at the tournament, right? They feel good about the outcome. They're more likely to keep playing. They're more likely to keep trying to get better and things like that. So there's the 65 to 128 bracket used to be top 8. That is going to be top 16 now. And the 257 to 512 player count used to be top 16 and is now going to be top 32. So If they get as many players at Nationals as they think they're going to get, it might be a top 32, which means there's really not going to be time to sneak in any standard sunset stuff on Sunday. If there's any player overlap at all, anyway. So hopefully they figured out how to get that started and finished on Friday somehow. There was also, real quick, an infinity symbol change. Infinity symbol now just means no symbols, so stuff like childhood friends won't work on it. You won't be able to irrefutable an infinity asset, for instance, but this sounds like there was some talk in the Discord. This was basically done because they wanted to print some cards that do some symbol counting, and having to put, like, non-infinity card every time you want to do this or do other weird workarounds just kind of gets annoying after a while, and it's, can't we just make infinity work differently? So they did. Now with the MHA modern deck building rules, without having to worry about symbol chaining or any of that, you can just say, like, yeah, infinity just has no symbols, but you can put it in any deck. That's what symbols do now, is they just control what cards go in your deck, so infinity is just a card that can go in any deck. And they don't need to have any sort of in-game symbols on them. There are also a few minor errata, the training weights errata that we expected, the playable committeds, and they also touched up detonation launcher and spinning kick to change the timing of those to after you play the attack, so that you don't get into that weird, the next attack window actually comes up when you start playing the card, right? That's when you have a next attack, because you need things like your next attack gets -2 difficulty to work, for instance. So the way those worked with those cards that maybe mess with the top of your deck when you were doing this, the sequence was not very intuitive, not really how most people were playing it anyway, except for the people that were, really on top of the rules. So they just tweaked those so that they work the way that you sort of expect them to when you read the cards, and the way the designers expected them to work, intended for them to work, rather. You go ahead, you play the card, and then you draw your card, or you play the card and then you get your momentum, or what have you. Yeah, and that'll wrap it up for this past week. There's been a bunch of different news. There's going to be lots of links in the description. Also, if you are an MHA player who never really played all these old standard boomer cards, you're looking at the spinning Necro Drive, or you don't know what the heck multiple one means, you can check out, I did a video that's a little primer of standard mechanics for people who might not be familiar with them. It's like a 25-ish minute kind of a PowerPoint, basically. But yeah, you can give that a listen if you want to learn about, what's what in this standard environment, what you might come across, what you might be able to do, things you might be able to do to make take your MHA deck and add certain standard cards to do some stuff that's kind of cool. So yeah, I encourage you to check that out if you're thinking about playing on Friday, but you're sort of wary of what all this might be out there in that format. And yeah, so that'll be linked in the description, all the nets, links in the description, the rules update stuff. Yeah, it's like a 12 link description today, but yeah, and counting down to Nationals, 24 days to test some Hero Splash decks. Gonna be a bit crazy. Yeah, we'll see you next week with the next week of news updates. Till then, take care.